Hey friends, welcome to my channel. Please like and subscribe. Your support means everything. The hallway clock read 3:17 p.m. when my life collapsed. I wasn't supposed to be home for another 3 hours. The pharmaceutical conference in Chicago had ended early. Budget cuts meant fewer speakers, fewer networking events, and fewer reasons to stay back. I'd texted Sarah that I was heading back to Minneapolis, but my phone had died shortly after sending the message. The 3-hour drive had given me time to think about our marriage, to plan a surprise for her. We'd been distant lately. Work stress, perhaps, or something deeper I didn't want to acknowledge. I remember thinking how I'd surprise her. Maybe suggest dinner at Marcello's, where we celebrated our 5th anniversary last year. 8 years of marriage deserved a spontaneous celebration. I'd even stopped at the florist on Maple Street, picking up her favorite bouquet of pink peonies. The florist had wrapped them in brown paper, tied with twine, an old-fashioned touch Sarah would appreciate. The house was quiet when I entered, setting the flowers on the entryway table alongside my keys. Too quiet for Sarah, who usually filled our home with music, or the murmur of her favorite true crime podcasts while she worked on her freelance graphic design projects. Her car was in the driveway, parked beside another vehicle I recognized immediately. David's red Mustang with the custom rims I'd helped him pick out last summer. David, husband of Rebecca, is Sarah's best friend since childhood. The four of us had been inseparable for years. Holidays, vacations, and monthly dinner parties. I'd played golf with him just last weekend, listening as he complained about work stress and Rebecca's obsession with trying for a second baby. "Marriage," he'd said, shaking his head after missing an easy putt. "Sometimes I wonder what we were thinking, man." I'd laughed it off, chalked it up to normal marital frustration. We all felt it sometimes, didn't we? Perhaps they were planning something for Rebecca's upcoming birthday. That had to be it, right? But, as I climbed the stairs, taking them 2 at a time with an excitement I hadn't felt in months, I heard a sound that made my stomach lurch. A laugh. Sarah's laugh, but altered somehow, pitched differently than I'd ever heard it. Higher, breathier, almost musical. It wasn't her public laugh. It wasn't her watching comedy specials laugh. It was her bedroom laugh. Our bedroom door was ajar, a sliver of afternoon light cutting across the hallway carpet. I froze there, one hand on the banister, the other suddenly clenched at my side. I could have turned around, could have walked out, pretended I'd never come home early, never heard that laugh. Some part of me, the cowardly part, wanted exactly that. To preserve the life I thought I had for just a few more hours. Instead, I pushed the door open. What I saw wasn't dramatic in the way movies portray such moments. No theatrical gasps, no scrambling for sheets. Just my wife and her best friend's husband, tangled together in our bed. The bed where I'd held Sarah through food poisoning last month, where we'd talked about, maybe, finally, trying for a child. They didn't notice me at first. Sarah's back was to the door, her dark hair falling in waves down her bare shoulders. David's eyes were closed, his hands gripping her hips. For 3 excruciating seconds, I stood there, a silent witness to the destruction of everything I had believed in. When they did notice, time seemed to compress and expand simultaneously. David saw me first, his eyes flying open with a look of horror that would have been comical in any other circumstance. He froze mid-motion, his mouth forming a perfect O of surprise and shame. Sarah turned, following his gaze, and the color drained from her face so completely I thought she might faint. "Mark," she said simply. "Just my name. Not an explanation. Not an apology. Just my name, spoken in a voice I suddenly didn't recognize. I don't remember what I said in response. I don't remember if I said anything at all. My ears were ringing, blood pounding so hard I could feel my heartbeat in my fingertips, my throat, behind my eyes. I remember the weight of shock settling into my bones like concrete, hardening with each passing second. I remember David scrambling for his clothes, muttering something that might have been, "I'm sorry," or "I should go," or any other inadequate phrase. Sarah pulled the sheet around herself, her fingers white-knuckled against the fabric. "Mark, wait," she said as I turned to leave. "This isn't what?" My voice sounded foreign even to me, scraped raw. "Isn't what it looks like? Because it looks like you're messing around with David in our bed." David was pulling on his pants now, avoiding eye contact. I wanted to hit him, wanted to smash his perfectly straight nose into his face. But violence wouldn't undo what I'd seen, wouldn't erase the image now seared into my memory. "How long?" I asked instead, surprised by the steadiness of my voice. When everything inside me was chaos, Sarah looked at David, a glance that told me everything. This wasn't the first time. This was a choreographed dance they'd performed before. 3 months, she whispered. 3 months. 12 weeks. 84 days of lies of her kissing me goodbye in the morning and falling into his arms in the afternoon, while I was working late at the lab, thinking I was building us a better future. I remembered the business trip to Boston 2 months ago, how David had backed out at the last minute, claiming his son had the flu. How Sarah had been so attentive when I returned, making my favorite dinner, wearing the blue dress I loved. Had she been compensating for guilt? Or simply relieved I hadn't discovered them then? "Does Rebecca know?" I asked, addressing David, directly for the first time. He shook his head, still not meeting my eyes. "No. God, no." Something inside me snapped then. Not rage. Something colder. More dangerous. "Get out," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Get out of my house." "Mark, please," Sarah started, but I cut her off with a look. "Not you. Not yet. We're going to talk. But he needs to leave." David didn't need to be told twice. He gathered the rest of his things and slipped past me, shoulders hunched like a scolded dog. I didn't watch him go. Couldn't take my eyes off Sarah. When we heard the front door close, she started to cry. Not delicate tears, but gut-wrenching sobs that bent her forward, her forehead nearly touching her knees. Some distant part of me, the part that had loved her for a decade, wanted to comfort her. But that part was dying, gasping for air beneath an avalanche of betrayal. Why? It was the only question that mattered. Sarah wiped her face, smearing mascara across her cheek. She looked younger suddenly, vulnerable in a way that made my chest ache despite everything. I don't know how it started. We were just talking at Rebecca's 4th of July barbecue, and something changed. That's not an answer. I leaned against the doorframe, suddenly exhausted. Were you unhappy? Was I not enough? Did you fall in love with him? No. The forcefulness of her response surprised us both. No, it wasn't about love. It was just exciting. Different. Different from me. She looked down at her hands. Different from everything. From who I am every day. From the life we've built. Sometimes I feel like I'm suffocating. Like I'm playing a role. The perfect wife. The dedicated freelancer. The loyal friend. With David, I could be someone else. Someone with no responsibilities. No expectations. I laughed. A sharp, ugly sound. Well, Congratulations. You've certainly shed the loyal friend and perfect wife roles. How's that for different? Her face crumpled again. I never meant to hurt you. What did you think would happen, Sarah? That I'd never find out? That Rebecca would never find out? That we'd all just continue our happy foursome while you and David mess around behind our backs? I don't know what I thought, she shouted, color flooding back into her face. I wasn't thinking. Is that what you want to hear? That I was selfish and reckless and stupid? Fine. I was all those things. I still am. I picked up my overnight bag from where I'd dropped it and turned to leave. Where are you going? Panic edged her voice. Out, away. I can't look at you right now. Mark, please. We need to talk about this. We can do something about this. I paused in the doorway, not turning around. Can we? Because from where I'm standing, there's nothing left to fix. I walked out, down the stairs, past the peonies still wrapped in brown paper on the entryway table. I drove aimlessly for hours, ended up at a motel off the highway where nobody knew me, where I could fall apart in private. That was 3 weeks ago. The aftermath has been a series of negotiations, emotional, practical, legal. I moved into a furnished apartment downtown, taking only what I needed: clothes, toiletries, my laptop. I left the photographs, the wedding china, the matching towels, embroidered with our initials. Material remnants of a life I no longer recognized. Rebecca called me the day after it happened, crying so hard I could barely understand her. She'd found out the same day. David had confessed when he got home, apparently shaken by the look on my face when I'd discovered them. Or maybe he'd feared I would tell her first. Either way, their household had imploded alongside mine. Did you know? She'd asked through tears. Did you suspect anything? I hadn't. Not even once. Sarah and David had always seemed friendly, but nothing more. Sometimes they'd even bicker over politics at our dinner parties. I'd appreciated how comfortable our foursome had become over the years. Did you? I asked Rebecca. There was a long pause. I think part of me did, she finally said. There were signs. Late nights at work that didn't match his pay stubs. Passwords changed on his phone. That weekend he was supposed to go fishing with his brother, but came back without any fish. She laughed bitterly. I just didn't want to know. I understand that now. In the weeks since, I've wondered if I could have gone back to not knowing, if I'd never come home early that day, if I could have lived happily in ignorance. But that's not how it works. The fracture was already there. I just hadn't seen it until that moment in the doorway. Sarah has called 37 times, left 22 voicemails, sent countless texts ranging from desperate apologies to angry accusations that I'm punishing her by withholding forgiveness. Her most recent message said simply, "Please, I'm falling apart without you." I haven't responded to any of them. Instead, I've thrown myself into work, staying late at the lab every night. My research team thinks I'm dedicated. My supervisor has hinted at a promotion. I've been seeing a therapist, Dr. Winters. She has gray hair and wears chunky turquoise jewelry and doesn't tell me what I should do, just asks questions that make me think about what I want, what I deserve, whether love and trust can coexist after betrayal. Some marriages survive infidelity, she told me during our second session. It takes time. Years, sometimes. And both parties have to want it equally. Do I want it? I asked, genuinely uncertain. She smiled sadly. Only you can answer that, Mark. 6 weeks after Discovery Day, I agreed to meet Sarah at a neutral location. A coffee shop downtown. Busy enough that we wouldn't make a scene, but quiet enough for conversation. I chose a table in the corner, ordered a black coffee I didn't want, and waited. She looked terrible, still beautiful, but hollowed out. She'd lost weight, her cheekbones too sharp in her pale face. Dark circles shadowed her eyes like bruises. Her hands trembled as she set down her latte. "Thank you for meeting me," she said. Up close, I could smell her perfume, the same vanilla and amber scent she'd worn since we met. It hit me like a physical blow, unlocking memories I'd been trying to suppress. "How are you?" she asked, then grimaced. "That's a stupid question," I said. "I'm surviving." It was the most honest answer I could give. She nodded, twisting her wedding ring. She was still wearing it, I noticed. Mine was in my apartment, locked, in a drawer. "Mark, I've been in therapy, individual sessions, twice a week. I'm trying to understand why I did what I did. Why I risked everything for nothing. And? Have you figured it out?" She looked down. "My therapist thinks I have self-sabotage tendencies. I was afraid of how good we had it, how secure. That, on some level, I was testing if you'd still love me at my worst." A bitter laugh escaped her. "Well, I got my answer, didn't I?" "That's not fair," I said quietly. "You don't get to make this about my failure to love you enough." "You're right. I'm sorry." She reached across the table, not quite touching my hand, but close. "I'm not explaining this well. What I'm trying to say is, it was never about you. Never about us, really. It was about my own brokenness, my fears. That doesn't make it easier, Sarah." "I know." Tears spilled over, tracking mascara down her cheeks. She didn't bother wiping them away. "I know nothing I say will make it easier, but I need you to know I love you. I've always loved you. What happened with David was... it was like a sickness, a temporary insanity. 3 months is a long temporary insanity." She flinched. "Yes, it is." We sat in silence for a long moment, the cafe noise washing over us. A barista called out orders. A child dropped a cookie and wailed. Life continues all around us, oblivious to our private apocalypse. "Rebecca filed for divorce," I said finally. "Did you know?" Sarah nodded. "David told me. He's a mess. His law firm put him on leave. Rebecca won't let him see Jason unsupervised." I felt a savage satisfaction at that. David was suffering. "Good. What about us?" Sarah asked, her voice small. Can there be an us again?" I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I'd promised forever to. The first person I'd wanted to call with good news and bad for nearly a decade. The body I knew better than my own. The mind that had fascinated and challenged me since our first conversation. And now, the author of the deepest pain I'd ever known. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I can't imagine trusting you again. I can't imagine not wondering where you are, who you're with. I can't imagine making love to you without seeing what I saw." Fresh tears welled in her eyes. "I understand. But I also can't imagine my life without you in it." The admission cost me something to voice aloud. "I've built everything around you, Sarah. My future, my plans, even my damn coffee order. Medium roast with room for cream because you always want to share." Hope flickered across her face, quickly suppressed. "What does that mean for us?" "It means I need more time. It means I'm not ready to sign divorce papers, but I'm not ready to come home either." She nodded, accepting this non-answer with more grace than I expected. "I'll wait," she said simply. "For as long as it takes." 3 more months passed. Summer faded into autumn. I stayed in my apartment, started running in the mornings, lost 15 pounds. Sarah and I met occasionally, careful, stilted conversations over coffee or lunch. She never pushed, never demanded, just showed up, answered my questions honestly, and told me about her therapy progress. David moved to Chicago after the divorce was finalized. Rebecca started dating her son's soccer coach. Life rearranged itself around the bomb that had detonated in our social circle. I thought I was healing. Thought I was moving toward forgiveness, maybe even reconciliation. Sarah had given me access to her phone, her email, her schedule. Total transparency, she called it. She'd cut ties with mutual friends who'd known about the affair and not told me. She'd switched therapists when I mentioned the first one seemed to be letting her off too easily. Then came the day I stopped by our house to pick up winter clothes from the attic. Sarah was at work. I had my key. It should have been a simple errand. I found the letters on her nightstand. A stack of them, handwritten on expensive stationery. Love letters from David, dated after he'd moved to Chicago. After Sarah had sworn it was over. After she'd promised she was fighting for our marriage. The most recent was from just 2 weeks ago. My darling Sarah. Another sleepless night, thinking of you. Chicago is beautiful in autumn, but empty without you beside me. I understand your reluctance to leave Minneapolis, to leave the life you've built. But we both know you and Mark are going through the motions. Real love, the kind we share, doesn't need the constant work, the therapy sessions, the forced conversations over coffee. The job offer here is still open. The apartment has a view of the lake, just like you wanted. We could start fresh where no one knows us, no one judges us. Think about it. I'll wait for your answer when you visit next month. All my love, D. Next month. She'd been planning to visit him. While sitting across from me at therapy sessions, while swearing she was committed to rebuilding trust, she'd been planning to see her lover. I took the letters, drove to her office building, waited in the lobby until she emerged for lunch. The shock on her face when she saw me told me everything I needed to know. "Mark, what are you—" I held up the letters. "When were you going to tell me about Chicago?" The color drained from her face. Her co-worker, sensing the tension, muttered, "An excuse," and hurried away. "Those are private," Sarah said weakly. "So was our marriage. Didn't stop you from sharing it with David?" Here's what I think, Sarah. I think you're a liar. A really good one. I think you've been playing me for months, pretending to work on our marriage while keeping David on the back burner. No, I never responded to his letters. I was going to tell him in person that it's over for good. Yeah, right. In his Chicago apartment with a lake view. Very convincing setting for a breakup. People were staring now, office workers on their lunch breaks, pausing to watch our drama unfold in real time. Sarah noticed too, grabbing my arm and pulling me toward a small courtyard adjacent to the building. "Mark, please. I can explain everything." "I'm done with explanations," I said, shaking off her hand. "I'm done with second chances. I'm done with us." Tears filled her eyes. "You don't mean that." "I filed the divorce papers this morning," I lied, wanting to hurt her as much as she'd hurt me. "They'll be delivered to the house tomorrow." Her face crumpled. "No, Mark, no. We can work through this." "Like you worked through it with David? Behind my back?" I pulled out my phone, held up a screenshot I'd taken of the most damning letter. "You're still sleeping with him, aren't you? All those business trips last month. Were you even in Seattle, or were you in Chicago?" "I haven't slept with him since. Since you found out, I swear, your swears mean nothing to me. I turned to leave, suddenly exhausted by all of it. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the house, the accounts. Don't call me anymore. She grabbed my arm again, desperation giving her strength. Mark, wait. I'm pregnant. I froze, turned slowly to face her. What did you say? I'm pregnant. Tears streamed down her face now. I was going to tell you tonight. That's why I wanted to see David in person, to tell him it's really over, that I'm having your baby, that I've chosen you. How do I know it's mine? The question hurt to ask, but I had to. She flinched as if I'd slapped her. It's yours, Mark. Our baby. For a moment, one weak, hopeful moment, I considered believing her. Considered the possibility of fatherhood, of family, of forgiveness. Then I remembered the stack of letters, the ease with which she'd lied for months. If there even is a baby, I said coldly, we'll need a paternity test. The hope in her eyes died. You really think I'd lie about this? I think you'd lie about anything if it kept me from leaving. I stepped back, creating physical distance to match the emotional chasm between us. I'll have my lawyer contact you, I repeated. Don't come to my apartment. Don't call me. It's over, Sarah. This time, when I walked away, she didn't try to stop me. 6 months later, I stood in the courthouse hallway, waiting for my attorney to finish speaking with the judge's clerk. The divorce was nearly final. Just a few signatures, a few more formalities. Sarah hadn't contested anything in the end. She'd given me the house, which I'd immediately sold, agreed to a clean split of our assets, asked for nothing in support despite the pregnancy she maintained was real and mine. I hadn't seen her since that day outside her office, hadn't returned her calls when they came in the first month after. Eventually, they'd stopped. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Thought you should know. Sarah lost her job last week. The office she recently joined downsized, and she was the first to go. David's back in town, moved into her rental house. Guess they got what they wanted after all. I stared at the message, feeling nothing but a dull ache where rage and hurt had once lived. I'd heard through mutual friends that Sarah had suffered complications with the pregnancy, had been on bed rest for months. I'd told myself it wasn't my concern anymore. Mr. Callahan, we're ready for you. My attorney beckoned from the courtroom door. I put away my phone without responding to Rebecca's text. Whatever life Sarah was living now, with or without David, with or without the baby that might or might not have been mine, it was no longer my story to follow. As I signed the final divorce decree, I thought about the hallway clock in our old house, 3 to 17 p.m. The moment my life had collapsed. And here, at 10:22 a.m. on a Tuesday in spring, it was officially rebuilt into something new, something singular. I walked out of the courthouse alone, into a future I was finally ready to claim as my own. Thanks for listening. If this story moved you, please like, comment, and share. Don't forget to subscribe for more content. Your support keeps these stories coming.